can't hear you. Santiago? I can't hear anything.
Otoño en Ultramix.
Hello everyone. I'm here with Michael Casteel on his interview on his new book. Hello, Mike. How are you doing?
Good, and you?
Okay, so I'm going to interview you today about your new book. And we're going live. We're going live now. Hello, Michael. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so the when the your new book is going to be live? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I would like to ask you some questions about the book.
Okay.
So, what was the significance of Trieste to the Europeans, especially in Italy and Yugoslavia, from the ancient Rome time to current day?
So you're asking about the significance of Trieste was to Europeans, especially to Italy and Yugoslavia,
Yes, that's correct.
from the ancient Roman times to current day?
Yes, that's correct.
Trieste lies on the southern continent of Europe and the Balkan states and Italy itself, and it's the road to the old Silk Road that the Europeans used going from China to Europe, and this was before the Suez Canal was built, and so it was the heart of the European continent of trade.
Oh, thank you. And also, was there many disputes over Trieste before World War II?
Yes, there was. There were many different types of empires that attacked the Trieste, Italy, and parts of Italy and Yugoslavia during the time from ancient Roman time to World War II. And Hans were part of the um, conquering over Trieste, Italy. And so was the Habsburg Empire.
Okay, thank you. The other question was, when the Suez Canal was opened to the shipping lanes, did the canal add or hinder the seaport of Trieste? Sorry.
Well, it did kind of hinder the seaport Trieste because the seaport Trieste did not have red lines going from Trieste to Europe, especially Austria and Germany. But once the Habsburg did install the railroad line from Austria to Trieste, they were able to ship many goods that came through the Suez Canal to Trieste. And it was the shortest distance
Sorry, the distance, did you say?
from Suez Canal to Trieste than it is to go around Italy
Yes.
to southern or into the Atlantic Ocean from the Suez Canal.
Oh, that's a bit. Yeah, that's true. And when did the Habsburg Empire invest to independent companies that built the railway lines? What was their agenda? Their agenda.
The Habsburg started doing this, investing into the independent companies of railway lines to build the railway lines back in the Habsburg Empire range, which is about the 17th to 19th century. And Habsburg had decided not to build the railroad lines on their own, that they were to acquire that the independent companies do it themselves, even though the taxation from the Habsburg Empire did help pay for the railroad lines. So it's basically the independent companies that built it.
Oh, that's interesting. And also, what country was Habsburg Empire? And since they were a landlocked country, why did they choose to bring electricity into their country?
So reason why the Habsburg Empire, which is Austria-Hungary, they were a landlocked company, and only way that they were to gain a seaport was through Trieste, which is now Trieste, Italy. But only way to acquire that was to conquer it, and so they had to do that before they had to conquer Trieste before they were to gain control of it. And this was back in the 1600s to probably about 1800s.
Oh, okay.
The Habsburg Empire lasted until until end of World War One.
And did the Habsburg Empire install the railroad line interested to the interior of the Habsburg Empire?
So you're breaking up, right?
I'm sorry. Did the Habsburg Empire install the railroad line to Trieste to the interior of the Habsburg Empire?
It was the independent companies that they hired on to do that. But yes, it was part of the Habsburg Empire government that helped aid in the railroad line, but they did not install it themselves.
Okay, so the government hired independent company, correct?
And sorry, what?
So the government hired independent company.
Yes.
Okay.
And the individual companies that built the railroad line, they did have issues, as in building railroad lines going up the steep slopes of the Alps into Austria. And back then they had steam engines, and only one steam engine locomotive was pulling the load
Oh,
up
can you
the
repeat the last
steep
thing?
grade, and they weren't able to make it up to the grade. So that was one of the issues that they had until they were able to upgrade the railroad cars and locomotives.
Oh, okay. And why did the Habsburg Empire lose Trieste?
Well, at the end of World War One, Treaty of Versailles had decided to hand over the Trieste seaport in the region of that area to Yugoslavia. And Yugoslavia was a newly born country at the end of World War One, and so Treaty of Versailles was handed over to Yugoslavia.
Oh, okay.
And the Habsburg Empire had fallen.
Oh, so the empire has fallen by that time, correct? And which country took ownership of Trieste when the Habsburg Empire lost it due to the Treaty of Versailles?
It was it was given to the Yugoslavians, a newborn country.
And when was that?
It was handed over to the Yugoslavians, which was a new developed country after World War One had ended.
Oh, okay. And when and why did the newly established Yugoslavian country give it the Trieste and Fiume?
Because the Italians had claimed that the cities and towns and provinces had buildings that were made by Italians in that area, and so the Yugoslavians were saying to the Italians, okay, we'll hand it over to you, we'll give it to you because we do not need it at this time in our country. So they handed over Fiume, Trieste, and the region all the way up to Austria.
Okay. And give me 1 second here. Although there are two treaties called Treaty of Rapallo 1920 or 1922, which one gave Italy Trieste and Fiume? What is the differences in the two treaties? What is the difference in the two treaties?
That's a good question. Treaty of Apollo, there were two of them, 1920 and 1922. The 1920 Treaty of Apollo was significant because Yugoslavia had handed over Trieste to Italy, and that was the Treaty of Apollo of 1920. The 1922 Apollo was also a new type of treaty that was signed between Germany and Russia, allowing the Germans to bring their closed down closed down military and factories of war material that was allowed to be sent to Russia, and to train the Germans and Russians in Russia. That's the difference between the two treaties.
Thank you for that explanation. So when Italy and Germany had conquered Yugoslavia during World War II, which head leader for Yugoslavia had decided to rebel against the two fascist countries and why?
Marshal Tito was newly established rebel who became head of the Yugoslavian state during World War II, and he had fought against the Germans and Italians when they had occupied Trieste. I'm sorry, not only Trieste but also Yugoslavia area, which is also known as the Balkan states.
Thank you for that.
It was just to regain back Yugoslavia.
Yes, go ahead.
It was to regain back the country Yugoslavia and the region that belongs to each country that they rebelled against the Germans and the Italians during the fascist regime during World War II.
Okay. And the other question. When World War II was ending in Yugoslavia and in Italy, where did the Allies and Marshal Tito had decided the border lines between Italy and Yugoslavia?
Well, during 1944 and beginning of 1945, the Allies, which is the Britain, United States, and Russians, had met in Yalta called the Yalta Reference. Can't talk. Sorry, Yalta Conference, and this was to establish the borders for Germany at the end of World War II had ended in the European continent, but they did not decide upon the borders in Italy or the Balkan states area, and so that led to the debate between the two countries of Italy and Yugoslavia, who owns certain portions of Trieste area in 1945, and that lasted for 9 years. In 1954, that it ended.
Thank you for that information. What was it? Well, I'm sorry, I got confused here. Why was there a dispute between Italy and Yugoslavia as of May 1st, 1945 to October 1954, a 9-year conflict?
So the reason why there was a conflict there was because the Yalta Conference did not distribute the borderlines between Yugoslavia and Italy, and so Marshal Tito had decided that he wanted to conquer and liberate as much part of Italy for his country, which is Yugoslavia. And so he told his military personnel to go in, conquer, and take it as part of Yugoslavia going into Italy. And the Italians were saying, no, we want Trieste back. We want it back into our country. And so this happened on May 1st, 1945, 7 days prior to Germany unconditionally surrendering in Germany itself. So basically, this became the very first Cold War battle that was a political battle, but not a physical fighting war battle between the two countries.
And did the Allies interview between the two countries and why you did it? Hello?
I'm here.
Oh, so did the Allies interview between two countries and why?
Yes, actually, the Allies did intervene. It was the British and the Americans that had decided that they were to help the Italians keep Trieste seaport within Italy. And the reason why is because it was a major seaport that allowed imports and exports from the Suez Canal into the Mediterranean to Trieste that allowed offloading from ships onto rebel cars. It was the gateway to the European countries for allowing imports and exports. So that's the reason why the Allies, which is the British and Americans, or United States, military had decided to keep peace between the two countries and to occupy the area, kind of like Berlin, and help Yugoslavians realize that Trieste was to remain in. And one of the units from the British that I used in my book was the 2nd New Zealand Division, and also the other 3 divisions I used in the United States Army were the 91st Infantry Division, the 34th Infantry Division, and the 88th. The reason why I listed them that way is because that's how they occupied Italy, in Trieste, Italy, during those years. So the 91st Infantry Division was there from May 1st, 1945 to about July, August of 1945. And then the 34th Infantry Division came in, replacing the 91st because the 91st were heading home. And they occupied Trieste, Italy area from July or August of 1945 to October 1945. And that's when the 34th Infantry Division went home and the 88th came in, replacing both divisions in October 1945 to October 1947. And then in October 1947, rest of the 88th Infantry Division went home and left behind a couple infantry regiments and other subunits of the 88th to occupy Trieste, Italy, under the new developed government called Trust, which is Trieste United States troops in Trieste, Italy. And Trieste, Italy was divided between the Free Zone A, Free Zone B, that goes along the Izone River, and it's spelled Isone. I think it has a Z in there. I forget how it's spelled. But
Okay.
that river was the divide between Yugoslavia and Italy itself. And so Trieste was on the west side of the borderline there. And it still remains in Italy.
And who were the peacemakers of Trieste conflict
But
of the
it
Cold War?
did last for 9 years conflict.
Oh,
It was a huge political battleground that was forgotten by all the allies and other nations
so there's not much information about it, correct? And
What's
that's
that?
why they have been forgotten. So there's no people don't look at that information about that. That what you telling?
Yeah, I was talking about how um, the Allies were trying to keep the seaport of Trieste all the way up to all the way up to Austria and Italy, and
Yes.
how the conflict lasted for 9 years because the Yugoslavians, especially Marshal Tito, just did not want the Trieste to fall into the Allies' hands, and he also wanted to keep it because he could charge the imports and exports to all the European countries with fees for imports and exports. And so that's why the Allies did not want that to happen.
Yes. And who were the peacemakers of Trieste conflict of the Cold War? Cold War.
It was mostly the United States and the British, but there were also other countries that were involved, but it was mostly those two who kept the peace between Yugoslavs and Italians.
Okay. Why do they? Why do you claim it was the first political Cold War battle?
It's because Berlin had fallen later in May of 1947, which was about May 8th, May 9th, that the unconditional surrender of Germany had happened. And so Trieste, especially Yugoslavia and Italy, had fallen and did an unconditional surrender. The Germans and the Italians did an unconditional surrender on May 1st of 1945. So it was the first political battleground that occurred. But the Allies and the other countries in Europe, especially the United States, newspapers and news media were focusing more on the European continent over Berlin rather than Trieste, Italy.
I see. I see that a famous author, Christian Jennings, had published his book Flashpoint Trieste, the first battle of the Cold War, published in October 2017. What was the difference between his book and yours?
So, Christian Jennings, he's a famous author of history, and he wrote a book called Flashpoint Trieste, the first battle of the Cold War. And he wrote this in October 2017 when he published the book in 2017 when I didn't realize he was writing about it. And he published it, and I wrote my senior thesis based on this conflict, and I didn't see it that he wrote it and published it until October of 2018. I realized, 2018. I'm sorry, this is 2019. That I realized that Christian Jennings had published the book on the same thing as I have, but he wrote it more on the political side, not from the military standpoint. He did use the 2nd New Zealand Division's first part of the book, the first chapter, but I wrote a little bit about that too, and I'm going to be adding more from the 2nd New Zealand Division in the second edition of this book. But right now, I just wrote almost the same thing that he did. But he did not include the United States Army. He only included the 2nd New Zealand. And so mine goes more into the details of memoirs from the generals, from from 1-star to 5-star generals. That includes Eisenhower and also General Mark Clark, actually Lieutenant General Mark Clark, and Lieutenant General Alexander from the British military. So I include more on memoirs and also on the United States military memoirs and books that they've written back in 1947. So basically, I use the military side of view, then the political side of view.
I see. So
That's the difference between the two books.
it's basically about the same Trieste, but there are different themes on the books.
Sorry, you're gonna have to restate that. I didn't understand what you said.
Ah, so the basically it's about Trieste, both books, but they are on different subjects.
Yes.
Thank you. And when did you start writing your book? And you already told me that you did not know that Jennings had published the book by then, right?
Correct. I did not know he published the book in 2017, which was which was when I started writing my senior thesis, which I transformed into a book recently. And my book is coming out December 13th, 2019, which is a Friday. And it's only being published and sold online as a hardcover. And I did do a senior thesis presentation at University of Hawaii Hilo and submitted my senior thesis, which was about 30 pages. And now my book is about under 200 pages.
So that your book is like an extension of your thesis.
Yeah, my book is based off my senior thesis, and I transformed into a book, and I added a few more chapters to it.
And since your book is based on the military side, can you tell us more about the military side view from your book?
Yes, my book is more based on the military side. The reason why is because they were the occupiers of Trieste, Italy, to keep the peace between Italians and the Yugoslavians. Even though there was few fistfights, maybe bombs tossed, or gunfights between the Italians and Yugoslavian partisans, but the United States and the British had kept the peace for 9 years.
And when did
And that's what basically my book is about.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry, but
When did the Allies leave their occupation post in Trieste area?
October 1954. That's when the 88th departed and never returned back to Trieste, Italy area.
Since the occupation of Trieste area, who received the ownership?
Did you say since the occupation of Trieste area, who received the ownership of it?
That's correct.
Italy was given the ownership of Trieste, Italy, and the reason why is because the treaty was signed in 1946 or 47, and given over to Italy, even though Yugoslavians still fought for the rights of Trieste, but in the end of 1954, it was given to Italy.
Really. How long is your book? Can you repeat that again?
It's under 200 pages. It's 8.5 by 5.5 size.
And you told me it will be sold in February. December 13th, correct? This year?
Sorry, what now?
The book is being published in December 13th, you just told me earlier, right?
That's correct. On Friday, December 13th, 2019. Online at Barnes & Noble.
And can they pre-order it, or they have to wait until that time?
They can pre-order it right now online, and they'll receive it several days after the 13th of December.
Oh, thank you for
And then if they buy it after December 13th, they can receive it within a couple days. And it's a good holiday, Christmas type of, it's not a Christmas book, but it's a good gift to give to someone who loves history.
Yes, because it comes around Christmas time.
Exactly.
Anything else that you want to add about the book?
I think I covered most of it.
Well, thank you for your time. And we're going to put the link in the description for the pre-order of the book.
I will definitely put the link to the book in the description and also in the form below.
Yes.
If anyone has questions to add at the of this YouTube video.
After YouTube video. Thank you for your time, Mike, and good luck on your publication.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you for the interview.
You're welcome. And now we're going back to some Christmas music to come with the book. For the book. I got confused there.
A partridge in a pear tree. On the second day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 2 turtle doves and a partridge in a pear tree. On the third day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. On the 4th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 4 calling birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. On the 5th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 5 golden rings, 4 calling birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. On the 6th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 6 geese a-laying, 5 golden rings, 4 calling birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. On the 7th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 7 swans a-singing, 6 geese a-laying, 5 golden rings, 4 calling birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. On the 8th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 8 maids a-milking, 7 swans a-swimming, 6 geese a-laying, 5 golden rings, 4 calling birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree.
Ahora, desde San José, California, haciendo radio para todos. Ultramix Radio Station.